heavy mop around, then cleaning the mop when you're done so it doesn't grow bacteria. A hassle on top of a hassle. Try Swiffer WetJet. With Swiffer WetJet, you start with a fresh pad and cleaning solution every time. And when you're done, you just toss the pad. Swiffer WetJet, the faster, easier, cleaner way to clean your floors.
Yeah, I'm so stressed. Our business is growing. We've got people all over now.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 50 features.
Ooma?
Yep, switching to Ooma is a cinch. Just $24.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Find small business calm at ooma.com/radio. That's OOMA.com/radio.
The Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and online at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Welcome in. I think it's Wednesday. Chip Walters with you from Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates, and the Blue Raider Network. And the Blue Raider Network, by the way, will be cranking up on Monday with the first Rick Stockstill live radio program. That'll be at 6 o'clock Monday from the Boulevard. Hope you all can be there for that. A lot of good things coming out of football practice, and the Raiders are going to need to absolutely be at their best on September 2nd when they open up at Alabama. And then we'll have a trip to Missouri before playing 6 out of their last 10 at home, leading into Conference USA play. If I'm a little out of whack this morning, there's a reason for it. Was with the Blue Raider basketball team the last, how many days? About the last 10 days on their foreign tour to Italy that was absolutely packed full of activity and sightseeing. And here in the next week or so, I'm going to have a couple of guests on. We're going to kind of talk about that trip a little bit. And I've been trying to make some notes to get my thoughts together so I don't forget everything that we did. And besides playing 2 basketball games, all the things we saw in between Rome, Florence, and Milan before flying home last night. If you've got questions or comments today for my guest, who is Andy Womack, you can text us at 615-893-1450. You can do that. And Andy, I will admit that after that trip, I wanted to have a guest today that I could kind of be on autopilot a little bit, because I'm going to be on autopilot kind of all day. But appreciate you agreeing to come in today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So many things to talk about, Andy. And if you've got questions or comments for Andy, whatever it might be, if you need an insurance quote, we can get that done here today. If you want to give money to the Bill Blue campaign, we can take care of that. Or if you want to know the history of Flat Creek, Tennessee, we can take care of that. And one thing I wanted to touch on, and I will get off of this real quick, but Andy spent, how many years were you in the state Senate?
I was there 12 years.
12 years. And kind of give me your thought as a former senator of what you're seeing with the special session going on right now. If you could prognosticate what will come out of this and how much longer it's going to run. It's been 2 days. There were over 100 bills introduced. Dozens of those got whacked away pretty quickly. But it's gotten fairly emotional up there, and especially yesterday from some of the video I saw.
Well, I haven't been watching, to be candid, other than just what's on the news. But I did not anticipate that anything dynamic was going to happen in this special session. I think that the representatives and senators had pretty well let it be known before they got there that they weren't really up to looking at making major changes in gun legislation in Tennessee, and so far they seem to have done everything they can to make sure nothing is going to happen of any consequence. So I really didn't pay a lot of attention to it after I kept hearing from legislators, even our local legislators, that they weren't going down there particularly with an open mind toward legislation.
Do you find it interesting that it's a Republican-led House and Senate, that they have kind of gone against the Republican governor and Bill Lee a little bit?
Well, that has been a trend. The legislature did not go with Bill Haslam when he was there. Bill Haslam never really had control of the legislature. The Speaker of the House and the Speaker of the Senate kind of control things, and that's just continued with Lee. We've not had the leadership in the governor's office, let's say, or the ability to lead the legislature like we had during the Alexander, McWhorter, Bredesen years. And so I think this is just a reflection of that. That's just a continuation of a process that got started under Haslam.
Yeah, during your 12 years in the Senate, what was the most controversial thing that you went through? Was it the tax deal, or where people were honking their horns and all that going around Capitol Hill?
Well, what was most controversial, I think, in the legislature may not have been what was considered the most controversial by the general public, but we were going through some major education reforms when I was there. We were sued by the 65 rural counties in a lawsuit that precipitated the Education Improvement Act of 1992, which meant we also had to deal with funding, which we ended up settling on a sales tax increase. And then toward the end of my term, last term, the income tax raised its head, and we went through a couple of years of the controversy of it with nothing happening other than continuing to raise sales taxes, which had been the history of our state.
The education reform, that was something that you were very involved in particular, and when people who know your family, it was obvious you were going to be in the midst of that. And Governor Alexander, that was a very key priority for him.
Well, see, this was after Alexander. This was after he made some major changes, particularly involving teachers.
Career ladder.
With the Career Ladder program.
Yeah.
But he didn't really work on the curriculum. And that's what we had a situation, and the rural schools were right in suing. We had a situation in Tennessee where we had 65% of our high school students did not have an opportunity to take the courses that were necessary to get into the University of Tennessee.
Gotcha.
Whether you can believe that or not, you could get a high school degree in Tennessee, and just the very fact that that degree came from a school system that didn't offer the courses, you could not get into the University of Tennessee.
Wow.
Well, that was a legitimate complaint. So what we had to do was rework the requirements for high schools throughout the state, that they were required to offer the courses that were necessary to get into higher education, and the University of Tennessee or Middle Tennessee State or whoever. But and then we had to provide the funding to allow them to hire the people that they needed to teach those courses, because that was one of the problems. Many of the rural school systems had trouble hiring the math teachers needed, or the science teachers, or the foreign language teachers, and we had to provide them additional monies to hire those people.
What's your opinion on legislative members legislating so much of how school is taught? We're losing so many teachers because they feel like they have lost the ability to use their talents simply to having to teach to the test.
Well, we had a very delicate situation when we were dealing with that, and that's still current, as to how much responsibility the legislature should try to take in the day-to-day education system. My feeling is we need to let educators make decisions, and sometimes it may be that we have to back them even when we don't agree with them. And I found that to be true even when I was there, and I think it's still true now. But it does seem that the legislatures are taking the easier course of changing things in education without getting education input. And I think overall that's not a good situation.
And then and a lot of that has to do with standardized testing, and you've got the situation this year where 60 some odd % of third graders were not at the reading level they needed to be at that point, and it kind of put the legislature in a crack.
Well, it did, but they were the ones who set that standard.
Yes.
And then if you're going to set a standard, you're going to have to be ready to take the consequences if that standard is not met. And so that's why you need to be real careful about what you do when you start getting into the day-to-day decisions of education. Is if you don't get the input you need up front, you end up establishing a norm that isn't possible, and it becomes embarrassing. And so that's, in one respect it was good in that it raised a standard and it raised an alarm that more needed to be done at the pre-K and third grade, first through third grade level so it did let teachers know that more needed to be done. At the same time, it was done so publicly that it may have backfired a little bit on our education system.
Your involvement while you were in the Senate, in particular, so deep in the education part of that, obviously came from your family background.
Well, it wasn't only that, but a lot of it was this community. We have a pro-education community.
Yes, we do.
Middle Tennessee State makes us different than other cities surrounding us and other cities.
I think about my hometown,
yes.
and it is different. You're right.
There's a respect for education in this community, in this county, that you don't have everywhere across the state. So I was fortunate in that I was encouraged by my voters and encouraged by my constituency, as well as and the fact that my family was so involved certainly gave me some resources that maybe other legislators didn't have. But having the support of your community means more than anything, knowing that you're working in an area where they want you to work.
When you got there as a state senator, who were your biggest helpers? John Bragg had to be part of that.
John Bragg was definitely my mentor. I just admired, respected, and he was a lot of people's mentor at the legislature, and I was fortunate in that he was actually my representative and I was his senator. So, and we really liked each other, and we had a lot of the same thoughts as far as our support of MTSU and education. So John Bragg certainly, but within the Senate, Bob Rochelle and I, people did not realize, Bob Rochelle and I had gone to school together in Lebanon, first through sixth grade. So when I got elected to the Senate, and while I was running for the Senate, Bob Rochelle was a confidant and a close friend, and he was Speaker Pro Tem when I got to the legislature. So I had kind of an inside track with him, and then my relationship with John Bragg certainly didn't hurt me any in the Senate, because everybody knew the power that John Bragg had, and the fact that I had an audience with John anytime I wanted it made me a little more important, I think, when I first got there.
I mean, it gave you it never hurts to grease the skids, does it?
Senator Kyle from Memphis one time told a group of people one time, he says, Senator Womack figured out real quick down here that you need a partner, and he got the best partner you can have down here in John Bragg.
John Bragg, I mean, people don't need to sell him short on the power that he had within the House.
The thing that made John even more powerful was the fact that he helped everybody. He was not partisan. If someone of a different party came to him with something they needed to get done in their community or district, and he felt it was important, then he would tell them and help them get it done. And that's what made him so powerful, was more how he worked with people, particularly on their financial issues.
During your time, and you mentioned 3 governors earlier, Governor Alexander, Governor McWhorter, and Governor Bredesen, and our friend Keel Hunt, who's been a guest on this show a few times, wrote a book about working across the aisle and how, I mean, Tennessee was the model for how the legislative process needed to work. Will we ever have a time in our lifetimes of seeing us get back to somewhere close to that?
I'm pretty old, so I'm not sure we'll see it in my lifetime. I think it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of leadership from people who are willing to give up popularity for responsibility. And I'm not seeing a lot of people stepping up with those traits, candidly.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. That last political question now, and I'll get off of this, but you and I have this sounds a little bit like we have lunch about once a week, and it sounds a little bit like our post-lunch conversations a lot of times. But we're going to be coming up on a governor's race here in the next little bit. Any names you want to forecast that may be in the mix somewhere on either side of the aisle?
You know, there's been a tendency for people to come out of nowhere. Lee,
he came out of nowhere.
Nobody knew Bill Lee when he started running. I had a meeting with him a year before he. It was before he even officially announced, and I did not see where he would have a chance at all when I talked to him, and of course he had the advantage, I think, of a situation where his 2 Republican opponents in that primary got so focused on each other and got so mean toward each other that people got fed up and voted for him just out of spite. And he ended up getting enough votes to win because of that. And then once he won the primary, Tennessee is pretty well a pat state in statewide elections for Republicans. So once he won the Republican nomination, he was pretty much elected governor. So it's hard to say. I know that you have some people down there, and you can see them on TV at night, who are trying to position themselves now. They're in leadership positions in the House. Particularly, I look at the House. Randy McNally, the Speaker of the Senate, I can't see. I knew Randy. I served with Randy. I know him. He has no aspirations of being governor, but I think there are some leaders in the House in particular that would like to be governor.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, and they're on a lot of sound bites this week. So
that's correct.
That's one thing for sure. We're going to take a break. Andy Womack is my guest. We're going to dump out of politics. We're going to talk a little bit more about education and his family and how that is all wrapped into one very nice package here in Rutherford County and also at MTSU. This is the Wednesday Roundtable on WGNS.
Hey, it's Scott. When it comes to health, there are numbers that every man needs to know, including our very own testosterone numbers. I recommend going to Low T Center, where they make it quick and easy to get your levels checked, and it's only $25. You walk in, take a simple blood test, and with their on-site lab, you'll know your results in about 25 minutes. Low testosterone levels can make you feel tired, grumpy, cause lack of motivation, and drive. It can also raise your cholesterol, cause weight gain, and loss of muscle mass. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
When it comes to your home, memories and sentimental value are priceless. Farrah Construction can remodel your home or can update your kitchen, bath, or other rooms. I'm Ron Hall. If you can dream it, Farrah Construction can turn it into reality. Call Farrah Construction at 615-893-6120. That's Farrah Construction. I'm Ron Hall. Shop local. Let our family business help you. Farrah Construction Company.
Hi, I'm Larry Castelli, and I love living at Adams Place. It's very friendly. Everyone here seems to want to make friends and be your friend, and the staff is fabulous. Betsy, who is the director of activities, is fabulous. And she's always having something going on. We have music at least once a week, wine and cheese, and there's all sorts of different type of activities. I would highly recommend Adams Place.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by the law offices of John Day and AmeriCare Pest Control.
Well, let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. This is the weekend for Middle Tennessee Electric's virtual annual meeting. Everyone who's a customer of MTE is an owner, but you have to sign up to participate in this weekend's virtual meeting. Do that now by getting with your friends at Middle Tennessee Electric. The virtual meeting is at 2 o'clock this Saturday. Also this Saturday, the first annual Milton Power of the Past Antique Tractor and Farm Show, plus the parades at noon, right there in Milton, this Saturday. Also, the play Kinky Boots continues at the Center for the Arts in Uptown Murfreesboro, and the bluegrass musical Bright Star is at the Arts Center of Cannon County in neighboring Woodbury. No sales tax on food and groceries in Tennessee now through October 31st. That's at grocery stores, food trucks, restaurants, farmers markets, sales tax free through October 31st. It does not include alcohol, candy, or dietary supplements. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Good Neighbor weather.
A heat advisory is in effect here for the forecast area. Sunny skies here for this afternoon, a high in the upper 90s. Tonight, partly cloudy and low near 73. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 76.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE has provided light, comfort, and connection to our community since 1936. As your trusted energy advisor, MTE is always here to help. Connect online or download the My MTE app.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Welcome back in the Wednesday Roundtable. Chip Walters with you. Glad to have you along. Our guest is Andy Womack today, and again, we could spin the wheel and let it stop and just pick a topic and talk to Andy because he's been involved in so much. I kind of want to. We kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit, but the horse being that how your family. I mean, if you go on the MTSU campus, the Womack Family Education College of Education building is there, but I mean, and your dad is a hero to so many folks who are teachers throughout the state. But kind of explain a little bit about where the Womack family came from out of Flat Creek. You came through Lebanon and ended up being here in Murfreesboro.
Well, my father was the youngest of 6 children that were all born at Flat Creek.
And that is in Bedford County between Shelbyville and Lynchburg.
That's right. If you're going to Jack Daniel's Distillery, you drive through Flat Creek to get there. If you go through Lynchburg to get to Lynchburg, but my grandfather owned a farm there, and he died when my father was about 9 or 10 years old. So really, Dad's older brothers, who were 22 and 20 years older than him, actually raised him more than his father. But his mother was a strong lady. His mother, of course, had to take over the family, and she ran it from that farm in Flat Creek. And she had 6 children. The oldest, all 5 of the 6 children ended up graduating from Middle Tennessee State. They all attended a one-room schoolhouse in Flat Creek through the 6th grade, then through the 8th grade. Then they went to Shelbyville Central, and then they came to Middle. And then 4 of them went on to get doctorate degrees. 2 of them medical doctors, and 2 of them were doctorates of education. My dad and his older sister who was superintendent of schools in Bedford County for 16 years and assistant commissioner of education in Tennessee under Frank Clement. Also had a doctorate. They both had their doctorates from Peabody. But we moved when Dad came back from World War II. Of course, we lived at MTSU while he finished. MTSC, I guess it would have been.
Where were you back there in the married housing, or where did you all live at the time?
We were in what was called Vets Village, which is where the second student union building is.
Keithley University Center.
Yeah.
Okay. Right there by the ROTC building.
Right.
Okay.
That was that land was Vet Village. They had trailers there for the veterans who had children. So I lived in Vet Village while he finished school, and then when he finished, he went to graduate school at Peabody. But he taught a year in Shelbyville, and we lived at Flat Creek. Then we moved to Nashville to the barracks at Peabody while he worked on his master's and his doctorate. And then his first job, then he got a job after his master's. He got a job in Lebanon, and he drove back and forth to work on his doctorate. And then he became, and I think this is accurate, he became the first principal of a junior high school in Tennessee, in Lebanon. Wow. Lebanon formed a junior high school, and he was the first principal. And then when he finished,
as a young man,
yes. Then when he got his doctorate at Peabody, he was then offered a position back here as a professor. And he always told this, and I remembered it. He was not going to take the job at MTSU because it was a cut in pay. He was the principal of a junior high school in Lebanon, making more money than he was going to make as a professor at MTSU, and they promised him they'd give him summer classes. And if he got summer classes, it would match what he was making at Lebanon. So then he took it, and we moved here, and then he taught out here for 44 years.
Didn't he live over on Elrod Street?
We built a home. We initially lived on the Womack Farm, which is not my family, and people don't realize that, but that was not my family. But we lived on the Womack Farm in Elrod Street. We could see it from where we were living on the Womack Farm, and they bought a lot and built a house on Elrod. Wow. That's where they lived till he passed away.
Interesting that when you all lived at Vet Village, you were living on campus. Well, as time has it, after all of his, later on they built what was called married student housing on the back side of campus, and eventually became Womack Lane. And but that again was named for that property, not for your family.
Right. Womack Lane existed when we moved here.
That was right by the old City View stables and that City View farm, right?
No. It's back closer
to town.
To town.
Okay. Gotcha.
But that was the lane that went from Main Street up to the Womack farmhouse, Womack Lane.
Okay, which would be right there about where
married housing is.
Yeah, gotcha.
The old farmhouse and a huge barn. The Womacks had a tremendous farm there.
Yeah.
And sold it to the university.
Wow.
So we lived there. So I thought it's kind of neat. We moved to Murfreesboro, and I'm living on Womack Lane. We just moved to Murfreesboro. So I thought, that's a nice welcome. You live on Womack Lane. Now people think it's named for my family, and it isn't. It's named for Mr. Dick Womack, whose son Frank Womack and Ben and Lucy Womack were his children that are my age, were more my age. Ben died recently.
Wow. I mean, every time I talk to you, because I was of the opinion that Womack Lane was about you guys, but no. I learned something.
That's the Womack farm. That was all the Womack farm.
Yeah. When my sister is a teacher and has been for 25, almost 30 years, she's getting close to that number. And the two teachers that she talked about the most in her education to become a teacher were your dad and Jan Hayes, and people who I'm fortunate to have known for 40 years as well, and think so highly. Before your dad passed away, he and I became really good friends for other reasons in the horse business and all that. But to have people like your dad and like Jan and those people who were the rocks and the foundation of the College of Education at Middle. you think about how many teachers have come out of that program. You've got to be proud of that.
Well, I am. I'm very proud of when I was in the Senate and I would meet people from all over the state. The reach of people. There's something about my father. If you had him in class, you didn't forget it. You might not always like him, but you didn't forget him as a teacher. He had a way of picking at people. He believed very much, and he taught. He was fortunate in that most of his career he spent teaching seniors and graduate students. So he always said that, particularly when he was teaching seniors, he said, they've already been put through the gamut. So it's not my job to put them through the gamut. My job is try to get them to think before they leave. He said, too often we educate people by just, we'll give you information, then on test you give us the information back. And he said, I want them to learn how to think before they leave. When they graduate here, I want them to think.
Yeah, and
so he would challenge people's views. Many people misunderstood him in that they thought oftentimes he believed like he was challenging them, and he wasn't. He would take either side of an argument just to challenge you on your beliefs.
Yeah, and to hear him talk about something he was passionate about, whether it was the Battle of Stones River, which he wrote the seminal history of the Battle of Stones River, or talking about the beginnings of the breed of the Tennessee walking horse, and he wrote the seminal history of that, Echo of Hoofbeats, and to hear him get going, I mean, on that it was something special to see.
Well, he loved the walking horse business. He'd get mad at it, just like he loved MTSU, but he'd get mad at them too.
Right, exactly.
But he did. He was raised in the walking horse business. He was there when it started, more or less, and particularly the celebration. The Womack family was part of the original group that went together to form the celebration in its infancy.
Which it'll be tomorrow night will be the first night session. I think the day classes start today down in Shelbyville, and when I was the marketing and public relations director at the celebration, one of my duties was to put out the Blue Ribbon Yearbook, and which Jane Moore took care of all the advertising on it, but I was in charge of all the content. And the very first person I called when I took that position to write me an article of something about the history of the breed was your dad. And he would come in, he would bring it in sometime around, I told him I'd need it, July 15th or whatever the date was. And he would come in I don't know if, I'd talk to him in like February, and we'd talk about a subject, and whether it was the SW Beach Farm or the Harlansdale Farm over in Franklin, or what war trace meant to the roots of it and all that. And he would bring it in, and, if you can edit this however I said, Dr. Womack, I am not going to edit anything you wrote, but my last year there, I got him to come speak at a dinner, and I said, Dr. Womack, I just want you to come and tell this group of people who were all affiliated with the horse show. I said, I want you to just come and put us in your mind in 1939, what it was like that very first year. And that was fantastic to hear him talk about all that. And eventually he incorporated in the first 10 years of when that show was held behind the old high school, and then over to the new celebration grounds. But he could weave a tale now.
Oh, he could. He said it got better as he got older because a lot of his friends died, and there was nobody there to challenge what he was saying.
That's right. What was the best story you ever heard him tell you about that event?
Well, I can't recall, Chip. He just told too many, but he did love the the business. He loved the walking horse. When they first started, they were the Womack brothers. He had an older brother who was a surgeon and another brother who was a farmer, who were 20 years older than him. And he was the rider. The brother had the money to buy the horses. The other brother knew which horses to buy and how to train them, and my dad was the rider. And they were called Womack brothers. And in the initial era of the celebration, Dad showed in the first celebration, but he showed for Womack brothers, and he so admired his brother's ability to pick out good horses in advance. But he was always, one thing that always bothered him was the cruelty that he saw sometimes, particularly in the early years of training, when the horses first started hitting that big lick. And you had some trainers, some not very nice trainers who would use tactics that he just abhorred. And he always said, you can get that big lick, but it takes hard work. And we've got people that aren't willing to do the hard work, and they look for shortcuts to get the big lick. And that always bothered him. And he felt it would be a scourge on the industry, and it has been. Yeah. It's something they're having trouble overcoming.
Yeah, and and that is, everything from the Horse Protection Act and how it's enforced and all of that is we could spend hours talking about that, but what he wrote, and I think it's very important for anybody who has any interest in that breed at all. His book that details what they call the fountain of the breed, Allen F1, and how they brought the saddlebred in with the American Pacer, which is a standard bred racehorse, to get the overstride and the smooth ride, and there was, even in those days, there was science involved to get where they wanted to get to. The people who were responsible for thinking through that. And again, it goes back to your dad liking deep thinkers.
Well, I hope the celebration, and I do think that it's starting to, it hit a low point a few years ago, but it seems to be rebuilding itself in the right manner, and hopefully this will be another good year on top of, I know their entries have been up the last few years. It's still a major spectacle. It's not getting the attention it once did, and it's not getting the attendance it once did, but it still has the entries as much as it's ever had. There's still a lot of interest in it.
Yeah, there is, and I spent a lot of time in about 10 years in center ring, and thanks to people like Bobby Sands and Cliff Gillespie, who got me started doing some of that kind of stuff, and there's nothing, I can't explain to people when I was, those 10 years, and all of a sudden they tell you on that last Saturday night, and whoever's scoring the judges' cards, and they give you the number. For a moment, I'm the only one who knew, and then to be able to get that out to a sellout crowd was pretty fun. I'll have to admit that. We're going to take a break. Back with a final segment with Andy Womack. We're going to talk about Blue Raider athletics and his role in that when we return here on the Wednesday Roundtable on WGNS.
Where is the best barbecue in town? In 1920, East Main, the best barbecue for miles around is in 1920. East Main, you can buy it by the pound, sandwich, platter, or plate. No matter what you choose, it will taste great. You can come with a friend, by yourself, or with a date. To Slick Pig Barbecue. Barbecue pork, beef, or chicken, Brunswick stew, great sides, lunch specials, down-home atmosphere, and they cater. Slick Pig Barbecue, it's the best.
Learn to make money 5 ways with rental real estate. Double your money with apartments and get your map to financial freedom. And that map starts with a free workshop. Sign up now at lifestylesunlimited.com. Click on the Join Free Workshop tab and attend online or in person. That's lifestylesunlimited.com. Lifestylesunlimited.com. Again, that's lifestylesunlimited.com. Limited seating, unlimited potential.
Get pharmacy services with a cherry on top from Reeves Sane, Murfreesboro's hometown pharmacy since 1980, at 1801 Memorial Boulevard and at reeves-sane.com.
When's the best time to buy tires for your ride? When you can buy them at cost. That's when. And it just so happens, all this week at Tire World, you can buy your favorite tire brands of tires at cost. The Tire World at Cost sale is going on all this week. Come see the professionals at Tire World and leave in a brand new set of tires. Tire World.
Tire World, we keep your family rolling.
With locations in Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne. Online at tireworld.us.
This is Lisa Halliburton with Bell Jewelers.
Tell us about the Pandora collection at Bell Jewelers.
Pandora is still very popular for us. We have a Pandora boutique. As you enter the store, you'll see a nice selection. We have some we call Last Chance that are now 30% off, so you can get some really nice savings. This is Lisa Halliburton at Bell Jewelers, 821 Northwest Broad Street, across from Toots Restaurant.
Hi, this is Bob Cornell, pastor of Covenant Church right here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The answer that you've been looking for is found in Jesus and what he accomplished at the cross. You see, Jesus changes lives from the inside out. We would love for you to join us at Covenant Church, located at 1124 Brinkley Ave right here in Murfreesboro. We have services Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. and Tuesdays at 7 p.m. You can learn more about us at our Cornell Ministries YouTube channel. We want you to grow in Christ at Covenant Church.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Boy, the hour flies by, especially when you have someone like Andy Womack in, and glad you are with us today. We are, 10 days away from football season. Middle goes to Alabama. You have seen a lot of season openers in your time, and there's other schools I'm sure that can say the same thing. But when you are a group of five, which we are, or even going back to in the 1AA days, you schedule some challenging people early in the year, and that's something that I think any fan of any school going into the opening week of football season, whether it's high school, college, or whatever, that your team is never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it is, depending on what the outcome of your opening game was. But you've seen a lot of them, and I think this year's a challenge as well, going to Alabama.
Well, certainly, I have heard Coach Stockstill speak a couple times. He seems to, I don't know, but it appears to me he seems to think he's got more talent than he's had in the past. He's more positive than I remember him being in the past. And football coaches don't give you a lot of positivity, particularly this time of season. But he seems to be happy with his squad, and of course he knows the challenge they have ahead of him. We're opening with Alabama and then going to Missouri like they are. But that's the nature of the beast. We have to play those games to finance our athletic program. And it's good that the Alabamas and Missouris are willing to pay us and play us.
Yeah.
What happens though that is interesting is just like last year we got paid to play in Miami, and we go down there and beat them, and then we've done that to Georgia Tech, and we've done that to Missouri the last time we went down there. So, and Maryland, some of these things backfire. What's impressed me, I think, about our move to 1A that I always, in the back of my mind, wondered if we could ever attain, was the quality of the programs that Chris Massaro has been able to recruit to play here in Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
We've actually had Georgia Tech here. We've had BYU here.
Minnesota.
We've had Maryland. We've had, Mississippi State.
Yeah.
We've had some really top programs that came to Murfreesboro to give our fans a chance to see them at home.
Yeah, and
Vanderbilt, of course,
yeah.
came here, and so this is what we had hoped for when we went 1A, and it's happened.
Yeah, and and obviously the whole state of college athletics right now is something like we've never seen before with a lot of the movement. But one thing is for sure, that to stay in the race, you've got to have facilities. And that is something that, and facilities take money. And you have been, you put together the grassroots campaign for the Build Blue campaign, and which has gone exceedingly well, would you say?
Oh, it's beyond our expectations, and let's give credit where it's due. Chris Massaro called me in and asked, would you head this up for us? And he told me what his desire was and what he wanted to try to accomplish, and he knew in advance that I was supportive of what he was doing, but whether or not I would head it up was what he was asking me to do. And after chatting with him, we decided to embark on this. But now I feel like I ran the first phase, and now they're in the second or third phase, and we now have a staff in place which has taken over the Build Blue campaign, and I'm really happy about that, because I'd about worn out all my friends. So it was good to get some new blood in with some new prospects. But we have far exceeded. When we first started, actually we knew that to do everything that Chris would like to have done to improve all of our facilities for all our athletes, not just one sport, was he was going to need about $25 million in private money. But we set a goal at $15 million to begin with, because we, number one, felt that even that was a stretch of what people felt was attainable. Mm-hmm. And then that was what was needed to do the improvements that he wanted to make to the weight room, student athletic enhancement facilities for all athletes.
That's not just a football building. It's every athlete on campus will benefit from the SAPC.
And it will also house football offices and get them out of the Murphy Center so that we can improve the other sports offices in the Murphy Center. It'll give them more space and nicer accommodations, plus some major changes we want to make to the Murphy Center. We want to make it give a ground floor entrance from Greenland Drive, where the entrance into the Murphy Center will become officially Greenland Drive. It's unofficially the entrance now, but make it officially by tearing out that corner section and those awful steps and put in a ground level entrance where you walk into a big atrium area with offices and with an escalator up to the floor level.
It'll be very much like walking into Bridgestone Arena.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I went to Louisville's arena, and that's the way Louisville's arena is set up for basketball. So and it'll also, we think, make the Murphy Center once again a venue for top acts. We will be able, I think, to maybe start attracting events that would seat, say, 7,000 people, around 7,000, back to the Murphy Center, like we did back years ago when Harold Smith was booking events there at the Murphy Center when we first opened it. So we reached the $15 million though, and now we have a goal of 25. We can see we are generating more prospects. And it's not just large donors. We have a lot of people contributing at the $100 level, $1,000, $5,000. We're asking for 5-year pledges, so people that can give $1,000 a year for 5 years, we welcome as many of those as we can get. I think one thing I'm really proud of is we talk about that our total now in pledges and cash is $21 million, and we're shooting for 25. But we actually have over $12 million of that in cash in the bank already.
That is gaining interest.
So that is a tremendous. We're way ahead on where we expected to be on the pledges.
Yeah, that's great. Now, of course, it's 2 weeks ago now at the Blue Raider Athletic Association Donor Appreciation Night. It was announced that the Hollingshead family, Mike Hollingshead and his wife, and SRM Concrete, which used to be little old Smyrna Ready Mix, is now SRM Concrete in 19 states. They've got, in addition to their concrete division, they've got home building and all kinds of things. But a $3 million gift from SRM Concrete to the Bill Blue campaign, that to me, and you're right, the grassroots, the BRAA in middle athletics has always been built on that $100 a year guy, the $500 a year guy, whatever it might be. But the one thing that, in my opinion, the SRM gift of $3 million says that the very biggest corporate entities and philanthropic families within our community believe in this project, and they're putting their money where their mouth is.
We have had 7 donors over $1 million.
Wow!
In this campaign, and we did not foresee that when we started. We were hoping for 2 or 3,
and that's why you're now able to extend your goal.
And then we've had numbers of people at the 5,000, 25 years at 5,000 a year, 25,000. We've had all those levels, and they're the ones that got us started. Those were the gifts that got us started. People that give 7-figure gifts want to make sure something's got momentum and is going to be successful before they start committing 7 figures. So those are the people who really helped us get those 7-figure donations, are the people who early on gave us those 5-year pledges of $500 a year, $1,000 a year, or $100 a year, whatever, until we built it up. And once we hit the $5 and $6 million category, then the larger donors started getting more attentive to what we were doing.
How many different fundraising campaigns or ticket campaigns have you headed up, and why have you been good enough to take those challenges on?
Well, I guess that's what I do. I don't play golf. I don't play tennis. But I found years ago, and of course I'm in the insurance business, and we're always having to ask people for money. So yeah. I'm used to asking for people for money. I'm used to being turned down. And it doesn't stop me from asking the next person. But I don't know. I just developed an affinity, I guess. I've worked in 3 campaigns at my church. I've headed up one of them. I was the major gifts chairman in another one. I headed up a campaign for St. Thomas Hospital for Gordon Ferguson. Asked me to head one up years ago for a cancer building, and I don't know, just my name seems to get tossed around. I have had a couple call me, and I'll say, no, I can't. I really don't have a passion for it, or I just can't right now. And even then, I'll say, but if you want me to come over and show you how to set up what I know to do with volunteers, I only know how to work with volunteers. That's where the staff now at BRAA is teaching me how to work through a staff, because I've never really had a staff. It's always been volunteers. When I first started, I've got a group of people that I know I can depend on, particularly if I'm raising money for MTSU Athletics, Richard Lewis and Bud Morris and Wayne Gross. And, I've just got a group of people I know I can depend on to help me.
Yeah. Has this campaign been fulfilling to you to see the success? When you compare it to the others you've done?
It's just exceeded all our expectations. The athletic department had never really had a
true capital campaign.
True broad capital campaign. They've raised money before, but it's been in segments, like the baseball field, or just for one particular project. They never really had a capital campaign that involved the entire athletic department. I am so proud of Jimmy, and I'm going to tell you, we've got some coaches that have been a lot of help. Jimmy Borendame in tennis, our golf coach McIntyre has been a lot of help to us. Of course, Stockstill and McDivitt. Our coaches have stepped up, not only with support, and Rick and Debbie, not only with their verbal support, but they financially committed to this program, and that really helps too, to see their commitments.
Well, and you mentioned Jimmy Borendame, and the first piece of this Bill Blue campaign will come online in later this year, when the tennis center
Yeah,
is going to be completed.
You haven't driven down Middle Tennessee Boulevard, you need to, because there's a brand new state-of-the-art tennis complex about to be completed on our campus. And they've already started the changes at the football stadium that are needed in order to build the 3-story student enhancement center that we're planning on building. And then we've also Chris has also given the green light on the Peterson Plaza, which we're going to have at the baseball stadium, which will be a tribute to Coach Steve Peterson, but also it'll recognize all our champions with monuments and plaques, and it's going to be a beautiful display over at the baseball stadium. And we now have that fully funded, and so we're really moving on.
Yeah, and if you haven't, while you're riding down Middle Tennessee Boulevard, pull into the Greenland Drive parking lot. Do it before Monday because that's when classes start. And we got back last night from this Italian trip, and we pull in the Greenland Drive. It's like, oh my gosh, all the bleachers are gone. So they've gotten to that point. The old weight room has been torn down, and that thing is well on its way. And those are, getting around the stadium this fall for football season because of construction fences. Those are the kind of problems you like to have in all that. So, Andy, it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate you coming by. It made my first day back in the United States a little easier knowing that you were here. And thank you for all that you do for all the different groups that within this community. When I think of people who have given of their time, talent, and treasure, you're one of them. Our great late friend Liz Ray, she and her husband Dr. Creighton Ray, and just so many others. But thank you so much, and appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. That's going to be it for today. Brian Barrett is coming up next. So stay cool, folks. Stay hydrated over the next few days. It's going to be hot, but we live in a great place right here in Murfreesboro. Brian Barrett next here on the Big G, WGNS.